Researcher Ellis was having a very long day. Working at the SCP Foundation can sound like a pretty exciting job to an outsider. The problem is, when you deal with something exciting every day of your life, it starts to become as mundane as brushing your teeth or pouring your morning bowl of breakfast cereal. Over time, everything loses its magic. She had the unenviable job of double-checking the anomalies in C-Wing of Site-77, glorified box ticking. She trudged from containment chamber to containment chamber, everything seeming to be in order. Tick, tick, tick. It was all Euclid and safe class anomalies anyway, hardly major containment risks. But when she reached the chamber for SCP-2805, the security cameras normally used to observe the anomaly were on the fritz. She'd need to go inside. Great. When the chamber doors opened, she felt an immediate chill. Her breath came out as an icy fog. In the distance, she saw a jar sitting on a podium, the glass so frosted over she couldn't quite make out what was inside. No sign of a containment breach. She ticked the box next to SCP-2805 on her clipboard and moved on. Several hours later, Researcher Ellis was at home, finally able to relax. Since she started working at the Foundation, dealing with deadly creatures and cursed artifacts on a daily basis, she'd longed for the simple comforts of childhood in her downtime. That's why she decided to spend her evening with a warm mug of hot chocolate, a bowl of ice cream, and her favorite animated Disney movie, Mulan. She had just pressed play when she got a phone call from an unknown number. With a frustrated groan, she picked up the phone and answered. The voice on the other end was a little gravelly, but it sounded kind. His diction was old-fashioned, a man from a bygone era.
"Why, hello there, young lady. I hope this isn't a bad time," he said. "The name's Walt Disney. Perhaps you've seen some of my motion pictures. I was wondering if I could trouble you for some help with a project of mine."
This might have been some stupid prank call. Maybe Dr. Bryant or Dr. Clef was bored and decided they wanted to mess with her. The fact that she was watching a Disney movie at the time was pure coincidence. After all, they own half the movies out there these days. But that's when Walt carried on talking to her.
"You see, my dear, I'm a little short on time at the moment. I realize I, perhaps don't have the longevity that I used to. I won't get into the illness right now, but what I do know is that I might not be able to put my final idea into practice, and I believe that you and your organization may be able to help. Your, what is it called? SCP Foundation?"
And that changed everything. Researcher Ellis immediately knew that this wasn't a prank call. A member of Foundation staff would never discuss Foundation matters, even as a joke, over an unsecured line, and a civilian would have no reason to even know about the Foundation. Was she actually on the phone with the Walt Disney? It seemed odd and a little more than unlikely on account of him being dead for over 50 years. If only Researcher Ellis had checked her clipboard a little closer, then maybe she would have realized that she was already under the anomalous effects of SCP-2805, also humorously known as Disney on Ice. Here's a fun question for you. What's your favorite Disney movie? Probably not what you expected to hear from your friends at SCP Explained. But seriously, we want to know. Tell us down in the comments. Maybe you're a classical purist and you consider Snow White, Cinderella, or Sleeping Beauty to be the best. Maybe you're a fan of the Disney Renaissance and it's The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, or The Lion King that are the true masterpieces. Or perhaps you're a fan of their more modern outings like Tangled, Frozen, and Moana, or even their acquisitions like Marvel movies or the Star Wars series. Personally, I'm partial to Tron Legacy. We could go on, but honestly, we'd be here all day. The Walt Disney Company, started by Walter Elias Disney and his brother Roy back in 1923, has become one of the most powerful and influential entertainment companies in existence. Their corporate machine is so huge and sprawling, it rivals the size and scope of the SCP Foundation itself, and it's influenced the way we look at everything from mice to pirates to Norse legends to space battles. Some give the United States President the title Leader of the Free World, but anyone in that position would happily drop everything to take a phone call from the CEO of the Walt Disney Company, even today. The company may be a global superpower these days, but none of it would have been possible without Walt himself. Born in 1901, Walt started his legendary company at the tender age of 22. Who would have known that he would leave such an indelible mark on human culture during his 65 years of life? But he's not just an entrepreneur, animator, writer, voice actor, and film producer. He's also, decades after his death, an anomaly currently in the capable hands of the SCP Foundation. Well, his cryogenically frozen severed head is, anyway. And simply looking at that severed head is what puts such an anomalous damper on researcher Ellis's nice, quiet evening. Confused? Don't worry. Let's start this demented Disney fairy tale at the beginning, by which we mean the end of Walt Disney's life. Walt Disney accomplished more in his life than many of us would be able to claim in several lifetimes. He'd built one of the most enduring entertainment companies of all time, won countless awards, and made millions of dollars from his creations, including the Disneyland theme parks. The man had essentially made his own name synonymous with magic, childhood whimsy, and dreams coming true. However, rather than focusing on the past, Walt wanted to keep his eyes on the future. His grand vision went far beyond movies and theme parks. He wanted to shape the way humanity lived for centuries to come. And the name of this vision? Epcot, or the Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. While you may know Epcot as a mere portion of the theme park in the Florida Walt Disney Resort, Walt himself actually intended it to be so much more. As the full name suggests, he dreamed of creating a functional community of tomorrow with over 20,000 residents. In his own words, Epcot will take its cue from the new ideas and new technologies that are now emerging from the creative centers of American industry. It will be a community of tomorrow that will never be completed, but will always be introducing and testing and demonstrating new materials and new systems. And Epcot will always be a showcase to the world of the ingenuity and imagination of American free enterprise. It was certainly a utopian idea, though fans of BioShock might find their eye twitching with flashbacks to Andrew Ryan's disastrous Rapture. However, Disney's problem didn't lie in his plans, but in himself. Despite his achievements and larger-than-life legacy, he was still a mortal man. When Walt tragically contracted lung cancer, he finally became aware of the fact that he may not live to see his beautiful Epcot dream completed. And despite having all the money and fame a man could possibly ask for, he was beginning to realize that his fortune couldn't buy him a second of extra time. Or could it? This question would soon be answered when representatives of a mysterious company known as the Euclid Collective approached Walt. The strange thing, though, was that the entities that comprised this elusive group of interests contacted Walt in his dreams. You see, the Euclid Collective are a group of entities known as the Euclid, or dreamers, who exist only in the dream space, but sometimes interact with our world through anomalous, sometimes semi-organic creations they sell as products. In that sense, they were the original Imagineers. Their creations include SCP-2805, a few hundred snow globes that allow the user to remove and store their nightmares and negative feelings within, and SCP-1498, which are creatures made from old-fashioned rotary phones trailing a huge number of wires, coiled and arranged into sheep-like bodies. By calling the phone on the creature's face, a person can order a custom dreamscape from the Euclid. Naturally, as creatures who depend on dreams to survive, the Euclid were big fans of Walt Disney, a man who built a career of encouraging children to dream their little hearts out. In exchange for his contributions to the dreamscape, they'd cut him a deal. They'd give him a special kind of Euclid technology that would allow his consciousness to continue to exist and interact with the physical realm after his death. All they'd need to keep was his head. It was certainly a strange deal, but Walt was thinking of his children, his grandchildren, and their children and grandchildren. If he died now, then his Tomorrowland dreams would die with him. He'd simply be known for some charming animated films and a couple of amusing theme parks, not for truly changing the future. It seemed that the deal with the Euclid Collective was too good to resist. The deal was struck, and arrangements were made to preserve Disney's head and consciousness after his death. 10 days after his 65th birthday, on December 15, 1966, Walt Disney passed away. But that was only the beginning of his new anomalous life. While the public mourned, Disney's head was secretly removed and preserved in a jar with anomalous cryonics technology. The device is also fixed to a pair of rotary phones, a trademark of the Euclid, and an inscription that reads, "Siberian Solutions from the Euclid Collective." The anomalous effect was simple. Anyone who looked directly at Disney's frozen head would receive a phone call in the next 24 hours. This phone call would be from Walt Disney himself, presumably inhabiting the Onoroid dreamscape now. With this handy trick, he'd be able to maintain his communications with the rest of the Walt Disney Company in secret and see the creation of his precious Epcot project to its completion. But unfortunately, that's not actually how it happened. Following Walt's death, his brother Roy took over all Walt Disney Company operations. While the profitability of the company didn't suffer under Roy's control, Walt's final dream did. Epcot mutated from the sustainable, functional community of the future that Walt desired into a mere theme park, the Disney-fied World's Fair that all Orlando Disney Park visitors of today would recognize. As it turned out, most people in the Disney company weren't actually eager to take orders from the former CEO's severed head. As a result, he became kind of a dark company secret, hidden away within the Disney parks. After a number of reports of calls from Walt Disney after the entrepreneur's death, the Foundation finally started to take notice. They conducted a thorough investigation of the various Disney bases of operation and eventually found Disney's frozen head, soon redesignated SCP-2805, in a secret compartment in the legendary Pirates of the Caribbean ride. He was relocated to Site 77 soon after for further testing, where his anomalous abilities were later discovered. Sadly for SCP-2805, while his calls to Foundation staff have all consisted of attempts in enlisting the Foundation's help in making his Epcot dreams a reality, nobody has yet taken him up on the offer. Since his containment, the Foundation's main priority has just been suppressing conspiracy theories about the existence of Walt Disney's cryogenically frozen head, a task which they undertake with collaboration from the Disney Company. In order to muddy the waters, in 1981 they began productions of Walt Disney's World on Ice, later known as Disney on Ice, a traveling ice skating show. Since then, they also released the incredibly successful film Frozen and its sequel, to corrupt any searches for key phrases like Disney's Frozen or Walt Ice. It's been an incredibly effective smokescreen, as you can probably expect from the SCP Foundation. And sadly for Walt and fans of a mid-century perspective on the future, it's likely that Walt Disney's dreams will stay within his disembodied head. So if you're hoping to prove the existence of this truly wild anomaly, or somehow get in contact with Walt and help him bring Epcot to its intended glory, you should probably just let it go. Now go check out SCP-343 God and A Sea Snail's Fantasy SCP-1867 A Gentleman for more SCPs you can have a truly stimulating conversation with.